Gundam 00 has gotta be one of the most interesting takes on the Dreadnought effect that I've seen in Gundam. The GN drive was an absolute beast and made everything else that came before it completely obsolete. However, I can't deny my love for the mobile suits that came before the GN drive was widespread. Their down-to-earth, dare I say, realistic designs are just very appealing to me. So let's discuss the largest lad of the bunch. Let's talk the Tieren. During the midst of the Solar Wars in the 2290s, the Human Reform League made heavy use of their main mass production machine, the Phantom, to fight off their enemies. However, the Phantom had a big problem, namely the fact that it ran off of fossil fuels, which were quickly being diminished across the globe, with only the Middle East having enough stockpiles to operate units like this for extended periods of time. And so, the League decided to design a new machine based on the positive aspects of the Phantom's design. The heavy armor and heavy firepower the suit brought to the battlefield was impressive, and these things were kept in mind when designing the brand new unit, which became known as the MSJ-06II-A Tieren ground type. The standard Tieren ground type stood 18.1 meters tall, and weighed in at a monstrous 121.3 metric tons empty, which makes it one of the heaviest mass production mobile suits of all time. A majority of that massive weight was made up by its massive amounts of E-carbon armor plating, which really helped the fact that the name Tieren, when translated from Mandarin Chinese, meant Iron Man.
I am Iron Man.
The power source for the Tieren was a standard battery setup, and the pilot had a very interesting position in the cockpit. See, unlike traditional seats and screens, Tieren pilots would be strapped in vertically into the MS, almost standing up, and the cockpit often didn't have traditional screens like a normal mobile suit. Instead, the pilot would get a VR-style headset, which not only gave excellent vision to the pilot, but also allowed the pilot to adjust and perform actions with head and eye movements, in addition to having a cable that looked like an air hose, but actually instead serves to transmit data between the pilot and the computer systems of the Tieren. And for those of you wondering, pilot comfort wasn't really a priority for the Tieren, as the Tieren was only really meant to deploy in 1 hour increments. But no matter how uncomfortable the pilot can be, you won't exactly find them complaining about the armament of the Tieren. Firstly, it had a chest-mounted 30mm Vulcan gun, which was mainly used for dealing with air and ground targets. Also installed on the body were a trio of shields found on both shoulders and the left knee, giving the Tieren enough durability to tank shots that would destroy most modern mobile suits. As for its most iconic weapon, the Tieren used a 200mm by 25 caliber smoothbore cannon. As the name implies, this cannon is smoothbore, meaning it lacks rifling, which allows the cannon to more rapidly fire instead of focusing more on accuracy. The cannon also had a wide variety of rounds that could fire, including armor-piercing fin-stabilized discarding sabot, grenades, anti-air rounds, flares, and other types. On top of the cannon, a 12.7 coaxial machine gun is also mounted, which is meant to deal with smaller targets that don't need the cannon. However, a common tactic amongst Tieren pilots would be to use the coaxial machine gun as a sort of rangefinder, using it to make sure they were on target before sending the enemy straight to God with the instant delete button known as the main gun. A variant of this gun also exists for the space-type Tierens, which had a pair of E-carbon blades on the outsides of the main gun, which double as both heat sinks for that cannon and also serve as close quarters combat weapons. But if that's not enough firepower for you, we also have the 550mm missile launcher, nicknamed the Bazooka. This weapon is one of the few handheld weapons the Tieren has in its arsenal, and fires 550mm radar-guided missiles at a target, fed into the weapon via a sliding system and a double-stack magazine. Unfortunately, once the Gundam showed up, the Bazooka was kind of left to the sidelines most of the time, as the GN drive technology jammed radars, making the missiles pretty much useless. Finally for the Tieren, a simple carbon blade. Built out of the same E-carbon as the armor plating, this blade was wide but short, and was used differently than other close quarters weapons used on other mobile suits. Instead of slicing or piercing enemy armor, the Tieren would use its overwhelming weight and power to crush the enemy with the carbon blade. Even if the blade didn't penetrate the armor, the weight and impact was still usually enough to knock most mobile suits on their ass. The Human Reform League would utilize the Tieren for over a decade, while other factions like the Union and AEU made high-performance transformable mobile suits. The HRL stayed with the good old Tieren, which was older but still had a lot of amazing qualities that made it stand out. This obviously resulted in several variants, including but not limited to 2 individual space types for patrolling space areas, 3 separate high mobility types meant for ground combat, long-range artillery versions meant to hit an enemy over several kilometers away, anti-air versions meant to completely change the aerial topography in the sector, as well as the 2 most iconic ones, the Super Soldier Use Tieren Tausi and the potential mass production version, the Tieren All-Region type. These units were the best models that the Human Reform League had to offer, and the Tausi was specifically developed under the highly questionable Super Soldier program. Unfortunately for the League, Celestial Being exposed the Super Soldier program to the world, forcing them to shut down the project and cancel production of both the Tausi and the All-Region types. Now, as one could expect, the Tieren was a perfectly fine machine that did its job well and had its place within its arsenals. However, this all changed when Celestial Beings showed up with their Gundams.
You're all my now.
Okay.
Soon, the Tieren was seen as just outdated, and once the Jinx units started rolling out, the Tieren was reduced to backline roles or just straight up gotten rid of. The unit then fell into several hands, including several anti-Federation groups like Catharon, which painted them in their iconic deep blue color scheme. But thankfully, the Tieren would have one last hurrah, as the designers took the base design of the Tieren and used it to create the GN Tau Drive equipped Ahead series, making the Ahead somewhat of a spiritual successor to the Tieren series, proving that the Iron Man wouldn't be put down so easily. And overall, that's the Tieren, one of the chunkiest boys on the market and one that I find myself admiring, with my personal favorite being the High Mobility Type B. What can I say? I like my hovering mobile suits. Anyway, that's all from me. Like, comment, subscribe, and do all that good stuff. And until next time, this is Nerd Trooper, signing off.